access to receive messages of clarity, guidance, and love. As channeler, psychotherapist, and author, Noemi Grace has an intimate dialogue with the divine on your behalf. Lisa Berry, creator of the show Light on Living, will be co-hosting as live callers ask their burning question on self-love, self-healing, deepening relationships, areas of struggle, and next steps. By simply listening in, you're receiving wisdom that will lead to sacred stability from every channeled message that Noemi delivers. Join us now as we give you access to angels and grace. Well, hello, everyone, my Light on Living listeners. You are in the right place. We have a special treat. We are switching up the format a little bit because we are feeling, this is Noemi Grace and myself, are feeling the vibrational request for a special series that we wanted to bring to you. So I'm going to share that. So everybody right now, yes, you are in the right spot, and you are going to be hearing from a very special author because Noemi Grace is a fabulous author. We'll be talking about that more later. But this is actually not just Light on Living, but Living Beyond Wounds, the Living Beyond Wounds series. So I want to welcome my co-host, Noemi Grace, on right away.
Thank you, Lisa. It's good to be back after the summer off from Access to Angels and Grace. And I don't know what we're calling it anymore, but it is a special series on living beyond wounds. Yes. A lot of things, the global events are causing a lot of us to feel a little bit on edge, or maybe a lot on edge, feel like we're not coping as well. And so a lot of our wounds can get more easily triggered. And this actual backdrop of what's happening in the world is actually a perfect backdrop for learning to heal your wounds and to go beyond the wound. The wound shows up, don't have to fight with it, but you can transform it in the moment.
In the moment. And that's perfect that you said that. So for our listeners who we will be welcoming, we're going to track you down on all the platforms and invite you over to here. But Access to Angels and Grace, Noemi and I started that show. It's got to be a year ago. I feel like it is. And what we were doing then, and Noemi, I'm going to surprise you here right now, is we originally started that show inviting people to ask their burning questions. And we know that with wounds, I mean, they go all levels. They're deep, they're surface, they're a long time, they're chronic, they come back. So, Noemi, I would still, if you're good, I'm really putting you on the spot. I think we would still love to invite anyone who does have questions to ask those, whether you're going to email them, Facebook messages somewhere. We would love to address this because Noemi is a channeler. She's an author, but she's a psychotherapist, and you do all of these. And when somebody asks you a question, Noemi, you're able to access from all these different sources that you're receiving help to deliver to these people, especially in living beyond wounds.
Oh, yes, definitely. And so would love that. We do have we both have Facebook pages, and but yes, communicate with us. Let us know, what is the wound that you struggle with? What is it that you struggle most with, that you would like some help with? The wound that keeps coming back and you seem to get stuck in it. We all have those, and so the more that we can transform it in the moment, the more that we can heal it as it's happening or shortly thereafter, the more that we not only kind of uplift ourselves from whatever triggered the wound, but we start to get less and less triggered. And when we do get triggered, it's not as intense. So it's a big win all around when we can do that. And we can all do that. We can all learn to heal our wounds in the moment.
I love that. I think you just came up with our tagline. Noemi, I just love you. I just transform it in the moment. We're so using that. And we'll do a poll on that one. So my question to you, Noemi, because we were chatting about this and we thought this is a big one for us. And so what does it mean to you? What is living beyond wounds? Why does that topic mean so much to you?
Well, I'm also a psychotherapist and soul healer, amongst all the little hats that I wear. And in my own life and working with people, the same wound keeps showing up, being triggered by different people and different circumstances, but we all have our core wounds. They even have a special name, core wounds. They're at the core. They're deep. And while we think we can move through them as they occur, we transform and we get stuck. We get some level of healing, and then there's still something that can trigger. There's something that can cause us to get caught up again. And then we return to oftentimes the level of functioning that we had at the time that the initial wound happened. So, our lives are run by these wounds if we're not aware and if we don't have the tools and the skills to do something different.
I am going to put this question out right now for everybody. What I gathered from that was, are you functioning from your wound? And that's, Noemi, I love that, because I don't know, to have that awareness. And I love that we can kind of wrap the big bow around that, that core wounds are deep. And are we functioning from them as opposed to through them? And I love this transforming thing. And when I think of wounds, I immediately think of something holding us back. I lived with my mom, who was suffered and had many wounds. And I remember the thing that she'd often say, and it would always make me think of what wounds did, was she's like, I can't do that because I have this wound. I can't do that because of this wound. So she was really held back. And so when I think of wounds, I think of, that's going to stop me from doing something. So I'm not living, and I want to live beyond the wound. I don't want to be held back. So that's why I so attached onto this. I was like, yes, let's do this. Let's bring Source in. Let's get you to get some questions and answers and guidance. I was really excited about this.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yes. I mean, we all have wounds. We're human. So we're divine and human at the same time. And, even our bodies wound so easily. So why won't our souls, and as our bodies can heal, if you cut yourself, Lisa, you had that nasty cut. I'm sure it doesn't look the way it did.
Nope.
We can heal these things. And the emotional wounds can sometimes be the most disturbing to us, most painful, not only because the wound is painful, but because we're struggling with it. We can't get past it. It's like, I can't believe I'm stuck here again. Recently, just within the last 2 weeks, a deep wound of mine got triggered by something, and it caught me by this huge surprise. And that's what got me thinking about this. I was able to work through it. And not in the moment. It took me a while, but I was able to get to the point where I had enough awareness to realize, okay, this is the wound speaking. So that's like the first step, right? We got to know that we're triggered. We got to know that we're in the wound. And we'll talk more about that later, of how you can know, because, they're telltale signs. And so it took me a little bit of a while, and I was surprised. Oh, rejection still hurts like that? I thought I got over that. I'm an author, and not everybody loves the book, and most people love it, but every once in a while somebody doesn't. And you think that the things that we've worked on were past, but there's a deeper layer. It's like peeling the layers of the onion. There's a deeper layer to be healed, and the more layers we peel, not only the more healed we are, the more we have our life force back, and the more that we are. If you want to control your life, that's the way to do it. Heal. Healing is very controlling. You can control your life. Heal. And that way other things don't control you. The wound doesn't control you. What somebody says about you doesn't control you. So, for control freaks, this is how you do it. Heal your life.
Here you go. Answer done. Boom. Mic drop. Here you go. Well, actually, I love that you mentioned rejection. So if we could, I'm so excited that you're going to be able to share some of the, a reading from your newest book that's not out yet. Can we name some of the wounds that somebody might be identifying with right now? You mentioned rejection. I mentioned freedom, lack of freedom. like, so imprisonment, that would be a wound for me. Wow, that was a deep one. Gross. Ew, imprisonment.
That's pretty potent. Yeah. Betrayal.
Yeah.
Betrayal is one that I've experienced many times,
Okay, yeah.
And
Failure.
there's interesting in my first book, An Intimate Dialogue with God, The Miraculous Power of Unconditional Self-Love. There's a whole piece on betrayal that we experience from others and how much it reflects our own self-betrayal. And when we heal our self-betrayal, it then becomes much easier for us to accept betrayal from someone else. Accept it. Okay, it is. They don't love me anymore. Okay. Not they don't love me anymore. I'm a victim, but okay.
Yeah.
They're moving on. They're moving on. And another big one is abandonment.
That is a big wound. That's a common wound, I would say, or it's a popular wound. Oh dear. It's the top 10 popular wounds.
Oh gosh. That's funny.
But yes, I'm glad. So these ones, so listeners right now, I know that if some of these words are coming up and you're like, yeah, I feel like that one might be it, abandonment, but I wasn't abandoned. So what we're going to be doing over the series is touching on, we don't want to touch the wound, but we want to heal all of these aspects, all of these wounds that are come in different shapes and forms, and maybe not so like, hi, I'm wearing my abandonment jacket. Like it may be, hidden in some other kind of clothes. So I just want to make that invitation that we're going, everybody. So by the way, yes. So we'll be doing Access to Angels and Grace every second and fourth Monday of the month, whereas Light on Living will return to its regular, the common thing every first and second. So you guys join here for the Living Beyond Wound series every second and fourth Monday with Noemi, Grace, and myself. And so, Noemi, would you like to take this time to read some of explain how you get to this and then read it?
How I get to channeling?
Yes. Where are you coming up with this? Yes. So the new people here.
Okay. So yes, I wouldn't say that I'm coming up with it.
Right.
I had an experience 5 years ago, on the elliptical, and I was listening to an affirmations recording, and that was really uplifting. You go, girl. You're unstoppable. All of this kind of stuff. And in the midst of that, the recording stopped, and I heard a message that came from Source, that came from Divine, that came not from me, because there's no way I can invent that message. And it was, love is the fabric of freedom. Forgiveness paves the way to freedom. You will know when you are free, when there's nothing left to forgive, because you see through the eyes of love. And that not only shocked me quite a bit, but began this journey of learning. Not really learning. It's not like learning to ride a bicycle. It was as if the ability was unlocked within me. The key was turned, the engine was running, and we were driving. And I was in the passenger seat, and the Divine was driving, and I was able to hear and speak and hear the response from the Divine. And it's a gift I didn't know I had, and we all have gifts that we don't know we have. It takes the more we work on ourselves and get ourselves to be at the level where we can hear or see or know or feel however we receive our gifts, the more that we do that, the higher we are in our vibration and our thoughts, and our feelings. That's going to help us to discover what those gifts are. So this here was coming from my upcoming book, which is called A Divine Message for These Times. And this book is not a book I intended to write, but I started to have a dialogue with the Divine about what was going on at the beginning of this pandemic, and then living in the U.S. with riots and protests and things, and started to have this dialogue of what's going on, and had a sense that there's some purpose behind it, and there's great purpose behind it. And so I'm going to read a piece, which is part of a message I received from the Divine. And I had asked about my favorite quote from Rumi, which is, "The wound is the place where the light enters into you." And I said, how does light heal us, especially in this time when our wounds can be so easily triggered? And here's what the divine had to say. Now is the time to heal, and now great healing is available to you, both individually and collectively. This is also a time of great sorrow and suffering, which can open you to experience the light more deeply. The wounds which are created now in this time of intense turmoil trigger old wounds, bringing them to the surface of your life. They rise to the surface because that is where they can be healed, in the light. When you shine the light of God's love and grace on your wounds, you accelerate the healing process, just as sunlight can help clear some skin conditions. Open your heart to receive divine love and saturate yourself with it, and we will shine the healing power of our love and grace on your wounds. When a wound is triggered, your natural response will be to run with it, to allow it to play out in a fight, flight, or fright pattern. Instead of your typical reaction, we are encouraging an atypical response, which requires a smidge of awareness. You do not need deep awareness to recognize that your wound is being triggered. But when you realize that you're being triggered, you must learn to stop. You may not be aware of this immediately because a trigger takes you out of the present and could cause you to feel as if you're not in your body. But as soon as you are present enough to realize that a trigger has been engaged, stop and ask for our help. It only takes a little awareness, a drop of mindfulness, to ask for divine help. And that is all you need to start the healing process. When we ask for our help, we give it, and that is guaranteed. We will help you if you ask, but we will not intrude into the private space of your private life without invitation. The invitation is here now for you to invite us to help you. Do your part by asking for our help and then stopping to receive our love. You can easily diffuse a trigger with divine love. Then, in this place of love, stillness, and receptivity, you can easily choose a different path. You can choose to heal rather than act out of the wound or seek to protect it as if it was a priceless treasure. However, the wound does contain a priceless treasure buried within it. This treasure is the gift of healing. Have you ever considered that each wound brings with it the potential for healing? A cut creates a scab and heals itself in time. When the scab is no longer needed, it starts to dissolve and falls off. You do not need to carry the scabs of your emotional wounds for life. Heal them by receiving divine love and support and choosing what is most nurturing and supportive of you in the moment, rather than acting from the wound. These times in which you find yourself are all about healing, and we are here with you in your healing process and with all of you who are suffering. Namaste.
And with that, Noemi, we'll sneak off to commercials and let that sink in, and when we come back, we're going to unwrap that and to heal it.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
The universe is eager to help you and give you clarity. You only need to be willing to ask your burning question and listen to the answer Source wants you to have. As a channeler of divine messages, I take your questions directly to the divine and hear what Source is longing to tell you. I'm Noemi Grace, and my co-host Lisa Berry and I welcome you to join us as a listener or caller on Access to Angels and Grace, 2 Wednesdays a month. Call in, ask your most burning questions, hear the divine's exact words giving you guidance and clarity. Access to Angels and Grace, where messages of joy await you.
Hi, this is David Strickle. I'm excited to share my brand new show, The Stream of David Live, right here on OMTimes Radio. Each week, I'll have exciting guests, and I'll channel the eternal wisdom of the Stream, a group of non-physical entities whose teachings have transformed lives all over the world. So join us for an uplifting hour each Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's The Stream of David Live, right here on OMTimes Radio.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone, and Light on Living listeners. We hope that you will continue to join us every second and fourth Monday of the month, where you are going to find us, Noemi Grace and myself, Lisa Berry, doing our Access to Angels and Grace on Living Beyond Living Beyond Wound series. I want to make sure we really thought that out, didn't we, Noemi? We want to make sure that it was Living Beyond Wounds, not the wound, because we give it too much of an identity, and we attach to that. And so I want to make sure that everybody knew they were in the right place. And I'm just so happy to be back with you, Noemi. I love the vibe. We do raise the vibration, and just by being together doing this, I can feel healing happening inside.
I love doing this show with you. It's great fun for me and uplifting, and I get to connect with my best friend, the divine, and see what they have to say. It's win-win-win for me.
Yeah, I love the win-win-win. Now, before we left, and everybody, if you missed this, you're going to have to listen to the replay of the show. But Noemi, as you were reading a portion, I don't know what to call it now, not a portion, from your newest book that's not quite out, but will be. Do we have a date on that, first of all? Do we have an expected date?
No, because I just don't know how much more the divine wants to say. So still channeling. And
Beautiful.
I'm transcribing and editing, and I do a lot of work before I hand it off to my editor and make her job easy. And then, so I... every time I think, well, maybe this will be the end, there's a whole new set. So there's going to be special messages for different, like, empaths and leaders and parents, and a whole bunch of different special messages that are going to come at the end for people who have special needs or special concerns, really, at this time. So it's a lot of fun. I can't tell you, but my goal is to get a draft to the editor by the end of the year. So,
okay, and this is also an opportunity for everybody listening, as you do ask your questions. And Noemi, feels that calling, that pull towards that one. You never know, that may show up in the book. So that's actually a fun thing too, to be a part of it. So, what really stood out to me in that reading was, it says, you can choose to heal rather than act out of the wound, or seek to protect it as if it was a priceless treasure. All right, I want to dive into this one, Noemi. The question around this, because the question, and I'm going to circle around here at the top, that I really felt compelled to ask, is about ownership of wounds. Pride about carrying these wounds, how we got them, what we went through, what we suffered to own these wounds. we treat them as badges. And, and one thing, this is a personal thing, is the one thing that has always, hurt me when somebody has said it to me, and I mean hurt as in they've separated from me. When they say, you can't even imagine how much this hurt. You don't know what I went through. Whenever somebody has said that to me, I felt like, wow, you couldn't have separated from Source or me any more than that. And it hurts my heart because you own your wounds so much that you don't even want to share the pain of it with me. Like, oh, wow. So I have a lot of energy around that
yes,
targeting it.
Yes, you do. And so ego is protective of the wounds. And so, yes, there's two different aspects of owning the wounds. There's the ego aspect, which you're talking about, which is like, so when I was sharing my rejection experience last week with a friend, and she was saying she's experienced a lot of rejection, all of a sudden I said, I have experienced more rejection than anybody I know. And I was like, oh my, I said to her, excuse me, my ego is obviously needing to assert itself. So I said, ego, thank you for sharing. It was like, that was in the moment. And I was like, I'm sorry for negating your experience, because my ego just felt the need to yes, that take that ownership, like, oh, I have survived this great rejection. And, and we've all survived rejection. And we've all been rejected, and we've all been loved. And so there's that ownership aspect. But, so the ego wants to own that it's wounded, but it doesn't necessarily want to own its part in this whole wounding experience. So when I work with couples, sometimes, what comes out is, well, they punched a hole in the wall or something, and then later on, it's like, well, this other person was in their face, and they were so upset that they, didn't punch the person, but punched the wall, all of which is wounds. And so owning our part in it, however we punched the wall, or however we protected the wound, or however we misinterpreted. And in my especially recent experience of that rejection, I misinterpreted something and made... really misinterpreted it and blew it out of proportion, and therefore was experiencing this major, like, oh, poor me thing. And it was my own interpretation, which got me to feel so rejected. Not really what happened.
I love the interpretation. And here's the neat question that you bring up a lot there about, I'll go into survivor in a second, but about the wounds in our environment. They can serve as reminders that they keep around sometimes to protect ourselves. Like, because I see this scar or wound or thing in the wall, I'll know to never do that again. Or we can highlight it as a badge. Like, remember my mother had a scar that ran super long, and she said, oh, I'm going to get it tattooed, and make it nicer or something like that. We try to highlight it and make it pretty and transform it. So my interesting question is, and maybe this is the one to be channeled, is around survivor. We have a lot of people who say, I survived cancer. I survived this. Is that harming us or helping us? Are we owning a wound, or have we transformed it when we claim to be a survivor?
Okay.
I'm writing it down too. I have no idea where that came from. So, I'm going to say that again. Are we owning it or transforming a wound when we claim our survivorship? And what would be the healthiest thing?
It? Yes.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, there've been several popular pop songs about I'm a survivor kind of a thing.
I'm a survivor.
We do. Yes, exactly. And when I used to work with domestic violence victims, I would tell them, you survived, yes, but let's not stay there, because they would talk about it all the time. I survived this and I survived that. It's like, you need to thrive. Yeah. You're not going to thrive if you're staying in survival mode, right? So,
yes.
So,
I have to say something really crazy. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I never would have thought of this in a million years. Do you know that I haven't posted on Facebook in so long? This morning I put a post, and I just was like, wait a second, that word sounds familiar. And I wrote this morning on my Facebook page, you guys can all see it on story, I put, great news, you've already survived 100% of your worst days. or something like that.
I saw that with the sunset. Yes.
Yes.
With a beautiful sunset.
And you know what?
Yeah.
Yes, and it's so true. So isn't that funny that theme it just had to come. So the wound, so the outcome of this wound, whatever we're going to be entering to, is survivor, but we're going to get more info right now as Noemi here, my co-host, is going to be channeling from Source, from the divine, and asking us that very question. And these are the questions that we're looking to hear from you. Some of these questions like, yes, are we owning it? Are we transforming it? How do we do this? Can we claim that we're surviving? What's our best guidance? And it's coming straight to you. So I'm going to let Noemi go and do her thing, her magic thing.
Okay.
And
I just thank you. And my magic thing, as you call it, is, so what I'm going to do is get a little silence, which is not your typical thing on podcast radio, but I'm going to get silent and connect more deeply to the divine. Even the connection's already activated, but I'm going to connect deeper. And then I'm going to greet Source. I'm going to greet the divine, and then ask them to share. And then the divine will talk through me. And it's a gift. Divine, what a great question we have here from Lisa about surviving and transforming the wound and the badge of honor and all of these things. And I can't even articulate the question, but you know what the question is, and you always know the question our heart is asking. So help us here to be able to transform. We are delighted with this question, and we are delighted to be back with you both and with the listeners. This is a great opportunity for us, as it is for you, to share our wisdom to those who are wanting to hear it, yearning to hear it. And the wound is such a big topic. These wounds for you all are so painful, and there's so much suffering. And surviving is step one. But you do, as Noemi Grace alluded to, you do want to thrive. It is important to you thrive. We created you to thrive, not to survive. And wounds are an indication that you did survive. A big scar, a big scab, you survived. But in thriving in your life, you have joy, you have peace, you have passion, you have kindness, compassion, caring, delight. You can have bliss. There's so much as a way of being when you can transform the wounds. And so we want to tell you that you don't have to be wounded your whole life. You don't have to be getting triggered, feeling the wound, suffering the emotional pain associated with the wound, and then going back and finally getting out of that, and something else happens, and someone says or does something, or something occurs in your environment, you're triggered again. And so those who have suffered really deep wounds, oftentimes it is as if they have no control of their lives, and it's that loss of control because the trigger comes unexpectedly and brings with it such intense emotion. And then there's suffering, there's pain for a period of time, and then you pull yourself out. You do your best, you try, you get help from others, you try your best to pull yourself out or to wall yourself off to protect the wound. But whatever it is that you're trying to protect and not heal, it gets injured again. If you've ever had a scar, a scab, or a big wound on your body, you find yourself bumping into it, getting it injured again, getting it re-wounded, getting more pain out of it. And this is something you would maybe bump into it, but there was no scar there was no scab, there was no wound, you would not feel it. And so we want you to return to your original, beautiful, loving state, your loving essence, which is healed beyond the wound. And so understand that you can have more power than you do by healing the wound. Surviving the wounding situation keeps you still somewhat powerless. When you can transform that wound and make that a source of power, make that something
that changes you on the inside and then allows you to express something more beautiful, compassion, kindness, grace, love for yourself and others. Yes, you are wounded, and that is inevitable as humans, but you can live beyond the wounds. You can heal those wounds, and you can transform them. And out on the other side of wounds are compassion. On the other side of wounds is a power that the person who is in survival mode does not know. On the other side of the wounds is grace, which is us gifting you with ourselves and so many gifts. And so those are all available to you. All of that is available to you if you are willing to go beyond surviving the wound, beyond the story that you attach and the meaning that you make of the wound. And so you tell your story of how you were wounded. This one did that, and the other one said that, and this one failed to do that, and I didn't do that, and I should have. And you go through these stories that reawaken the wound, and they re-injure you. Be willing to give up the story. And for some of you, that is very hard. You live by the story, and the story is not truth. It is a story. It is a story that you have become the main character in, a story that you believe in 100%. And if you didn't have that story, you could heal. And if you didn't have that story, you can transform and you can transcend that wound, and you can live a life where you are in joy and you are loving your life. But that's awfully hard to do when you walk through life wounded. We love you so much. We desire for you to heal yourselves, to transform the wound and transcend the woundedness, the wounded condition. We're here to help you every time. Please ask for our help. And in this moment, we are complete. Namaste. Namaste.
Well, Source does it again and knows the time. I just love that.
Oh, look, yes,
we'll be
indeed.
back. We're going to come back right after that commercial because, wow, there was a lot of wows in that. And I am so excited to share and just expand on that when we come back.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation, and let's magnetize and monetize.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Oh, welcome back, you guys. Oh, I just love when you're able to tap in there, Noemi, tap into source, tap into divine, and hear these messages. They are messages. They're guidance. They're perceptions, like an intuitive perception. Is that a fair thing to say? I don't know.
So yes, and I wouldn't describe it that way.
It could be no.
Yes.
Yeah. What is that?
It's interesting because I channel my books in writing. And so there I really hear the words and I write them down. It's like dictation. When I channel like this on the radio, I start out a little slower because I'm hearing the words and then I'm repeating them. And then eventually, sometimes they pick up the pace and I'm not hearing anything before it comes out of my mouth, which is quite the experience. So in that case, it's rather than a perception, is me turning over to the divine, allowing the divine to speak through me. It requires obviously trust, especially live. So,
yes, it does. Well, and that's what I wanted the listeners to hear this, because as an author, like you are co-authoring with the divine, and so I love that it's such like a partnership. And so like a bunch of things came out of there, but I love that the word pain came out a lot, because now I'm starting to think, well, geez, it's the wound can be inactive. It can be a scar or this, but it's the pain. And so I heard two things. What pain are you getting out of the wound? And if you didn't have that story, you could heal. And those two things were huge. So like a lot of the times, so when I ask that question, what pain are you getting out of this wound? It's also a power. Oh no, there was one more. It was a big one. Here we go. That was when we do transform the wound and change pain to power. That's what, yes, I remember. So the pain to power. And that's why I was so excited the pain came up, because I know that at a time with my mother, her life was pain. But it also, she had to learn how to monopolize on the currency of it, and like, okay, great. If I'm going to be in pain all the time, well, what can I do here? So it had to become her PowerPoint as well. And she eventually identified with, people love me because they can give to me. They can help me. They can be there for me. So she had to really, really shift that around. So I asked the listeners, everybody, if you're listening right now, what pain are you getting from your wound? Because it could also be your pleasure. It could also be your power, but it's not coming from the most powerful place. And if we didn't have that story, you could heal it and have power in a different way. Do you think that I know you don't hear what you're saying, but does that sound like resonates, or do you have more to expand on that?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. Not sure I completely understand it, but of course they do, the divine. But one thing that it brings up for me is how we identify with our wounds. We're so when I used to work with victims of violence, they would pretty much introduce themselves, right? You go to something like a 12-step program, you introduce yourself, I am whatever the addiction is. And I'm not saying anything bad about those programs. They help a lot of people, and I have a lot of respect for them. But by identifying ourselves as wounded, we then strip ourselves of power, right? That power.
Yes.
And we have a certain level of power. We have the power of the survivor, right? I'm a survivor. There's power there, but our power source is way beyond surviving something that happened to us. It comes from deep within us. So we can live from that source,
I love that you just said that. By identifying ourselves as wounded, we strip ourselves of power. And I like to add that, and we are left with pain, because nobody wants to be without their own personal power. And as the series continues, because we're going to build, I did not even know what was going to come even from today, from Living Beyond Wounds series. I'm feeling a lot of like this shifting from, pain to power, into these. It's just really Wow, we're healing. I feel like we're already healing today, right now. Identifying awareness.
Yeah. And so the power that we have is so much greater when we heal, when we transform that so it's no longer a wound. And when we can do that, that power is so much stronger than the power of the survivor of the wounded thing, the thing that wounded us. And so being willing to return to our power source, to reclaim our power, requires us to let go of that story, to let go of that identification, like I am a survivor of X, and sometimes we have so many identifications, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the other, that we don't know who we really are. And sometimes we feel very wounded, and then we certainly don't know who we are if we're wounded.
Yes. Yeah. Like that reclaim by dropping identities of the wound, reclaim our, and when power, there's one thing I would love to be able to share with people right now. If you're listening and you're feeling, wait, I am identifying with the wounded. I have some wounds. I don't know if I have it in me to reclaim what power. I didn't have the power to begin with. Maybe, that wound goes so deep that this lifetime that we were born into. Actually, there's a question, Noemi, right there. Is it possible that we have been born into a wound story that perhaps our parents or our caretakers already told us and we started living immediately? Can our wounds precede us? Our wound story. Can our wound story
I'm guessing the answer is yes, but I like this kind of question. It's a soul level question. As a soul healer, it's something on the level of the soul. So let's just dive in with that, because I want to make sure that we have enough time for the divine.
Okay. Can wound story precede us?
Yes. Can we bring in the wound, or can the wound be waiting for us when we get here? That's how I would say it.
Yeah. A waiting wound. Sorry. From wound to wound. No, never mind. Okay, I'm just going to stop now. Okay, go.
All right. Yes. Yes, divine, can we help us? Because I sense that it's probably true that a lot of people have come in to very wounded situations, or perhaps brought wounds with them from another lifetime. And if so, what can we do about that? How can we make it better? How can we heal? This is an important question because it does address, as Noemi Gray said, on the soul level, and you are all souls traveling through time for transformation, for returning to wholeness and oneness. And so as souls, you have been wounded and you have healed, and you've been wounded again and you have healed, and you've been wounded again and not healed, and wounded again and not healed, and then eventually healed. And so there is this lineage, this lifelines of wounding and healing, and wounded and not healing. And so, yes, so many of you, and we have such great compassion for you. You can never know how much compassion we have. So many of you are born into, as Noemi said, wounded situations. You are born to parents who themselves have suffered many wounds, and you are born into perhaps countries that are poverty-stricken or otherwise suffering, and you were born into a suffering situation. And so many of you have started out life, you may feel that you were disadvantaged because you were not born into affluence or love or kindness, and so you have had to struggle just to get through the day and get through your childhood. And we really want you to know that you can heal all of that and not make your whole life be a struggle lifelong. And yes, some of you have brought the wound in with you. Some of you, as you go through your life in one incarnation, you will notice that the same wound gets triggered over and over again, whether it is the rejection or the betrayal, the abandonment, the being invisible, the being unloved, whatever the wound is, it gets triggered over and over again. And for many of you, this wound not only is repetitive in one lifetime, but is through many lifetimes. And you come in wanting to heal the wound. You will always come in wanting to heal. You come in wanting freedom. You come in wanting to be better. And something happens and you start that cycle again of being wounded and living with the wounds. And so, yes, all of this can be healed and we can help, but we also want to remind you that there are many, many gifted, skilled healers out there that can help you. Because if you have not yet honed your ability to hear us, and you all can hear us, but if that ability is not sharpened and fine-tuned, then you will need help from someone else as well. Someone who has skills that you do not have, or someone who can hear and follow the instructions. And it is your purpose, part of your unique purpose for each one of you to heal those wounds, to become liberated from your wounds. That liberation will bring you into joy. It will bring you into compassion and kindness. It will bring you into the best qualities of you, the best experience of you. And so, yes, many of you are wounded from a long time ago, from early on in this lifetime or from many lifetimes. And yet in this lifetime, it is possible for every one of you to heal, to fully heal. It is possible. It is maybe a lot of work, and you may need to ask for a lot of help, and you may need to reach out to us and others, but it is absolutely possible for all of you to heal. And as you heal, you do step into your power more, because your power comes from within, deep within. Deep within you is the power of who you are, and is divine power, is divine love. There is a seed of divinity within you, and there is your unique power. It is like the pilot light within you, and it might be flickering, but the more that you heal your wounds, the stronger it gets, the brighter it gets, the more it glows, the more radiant it is. And so it is important. If you're listening and you say, oh, I have so many wounds, it is important for you to know that they can all be healed, and we are here to help. And we encourage you to ask other humans, other people to help you in your healing process, because you all deserve to be free. And that is why you're on earth today, to be free. And yet wounding and rewounding keeps happening, and it prevents you from getting there. But it is possible, and we are cheerleading for you. We want you to get there, and we want to help you. Ask for our help. Ask for the help of others. We love you so much. We are complete. Namaste. Namaste. Lisa, are you there?
Oh, I muted myself so I wasn't interrupting. I was just saying.
I sensed you were there and muted.
Yes. You know what? I love that what I got was, it is possible to fully heal. And I think a lot of people need to hear that right now. It is possible to fully heal, whether you've been born into a wound story or a wound yourself, or just immediately, or it's brand new and fresh. It is possible to fully heal.
Yes, and that is so encouraging to me. That's and to fully heal in lifetime. That was like, oh wow, that's pretty amazing. And they said it might be a lot of work. I think they said that. I don't always remember everything, but I think they said that.
And there's a lot going on. You know, I'm just so happy. I'm so glad that we've begun this series now in this 3D world and Audible, and people can hear and listen. And I want to take this time to invite you guys again to reach out to Noemi, Grace. And whether you message her, but you could also email her. What was the best email if they would like to contact you directly?
Noemi Grace Author at gmail.com. So it's Noemi Grace, Grace, author, AUTHOR at Gmail. There is another Noemi Grace at Gmail without the author, and she's getting some of my emails. I don't think she's too thrilled with it. So add the author piece.
Well, and that's easy to remember because all the Light on Living listeners, I'm saying this so fast now, will know that I interview authors. So that is a perfect way to connect with you or myself on like Facebook page or Facebook Messenger or Lisa at lightonliving.com. The reason why we want to make sure that you know how to get a hold of us is that sometimes it's our wounds are sometimes personal and they're private or they're scary or we're not quite sure. So I just really want to make sure that you guys know how to get a hold of us if you want private help or public help, because we are going to be continuing this. And now we won't be next Monday, but we'll be the next Monday right here at 12 o'clock noon. And any questions that come in, Noemi, we're gonna address those. We're gonna help them, and then continue on this series. Yeah, and the series being Living Beyond Wounds. This is the series that we're so called to do. And Noemi, I'm just so happy to be back on the air with Access to Angels and Grace with you.
Oh, me too. It's so much fun. Such a gift.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Aw. Well, tune in, guys. If you're going to just listen to the regular Light on Living, tune in at 11 a.m. next Monday on OMTimes Magazine's Facebook page, because I'll be doing a live there where that's really fun. We get to be interactive, and then you can tune into the show. Otherwise, you guys have a fabulous week. Noemi, have a beautiful time, and let's go transform our pain into power.
Yes. Take care.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye, Noemi.
Bye, Lisa.